When it is time to say goodbye, parting is such sweet sorrow that I shall say good night till it be morrow. Juliet from Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. 1995. After almost 3 years of living together and getting through the hard emotional upheavals while still enjoying the good times, Erik and I felt the need for a change. A craving for new adventures called us to go our separate ways. We were young and wanted to have new experiences with new people. To say goodbye, we took a trip to Turkey together. For a week, we hired a car with a driver who took us to beautiful locations for only $25 a day. We drove along majestic forest cliffs overlooking tranquil rivers that meandered gracefully below, while the surrounding foliage created a mesmerizing kaleidoscope of colors. We stopped to picnic by the river, listening to the gentle murmur of the water while the birds sang, adding to the calm ambiance. Time seemed to stand still, allowing us to be fully immersed in the magic of the moment. We bathed in the thermal baths of Pamukkale, an experience that blended relaxation with awe-inspiring natural beauty. The terraced pools with their milky white hue created a surreal backdrop, while the warm, mineral-rich waters enveloped us in a sense of peacefulness and rejuvenation. The faint scent of minerals in the air heightened our experience and transported us to a place of complete serenity. Our visit to Pamukkale was an unforgettable experience that revitalized our souls. In the waning moments of our relationship, amidst the backdrop of uncertainty, we found peace in one final shared experience, a fleeting moment of profound beauty that would forever remain in our hearts and memories. In that transient moment, as we sat side by side in the quiet hum of the thermal waters, we found respite from the tumult of our emotions. It is a reminder that even in the pain of parting, there can still be moments of beauty. Our time in Turkey seemed to slip through our fingers like grains of sand, and when we returned home, Erik wasted no time in preparing for his journey to India. The departure day approached with startling speed, and before I knew it, Erik was loading his bags into the taxi. I felt a blend of sentiments, regret and longing, mingled with anticipation and optimism. We said our farewells full of heartfelt smiles and lingering hugs. I stood there watching until the car was out of sight. I wanted to take in every detail of his departure, from the sound of the engine to the way the sunlight caught the windows as the taxi drove away. It was a moment I wanted to remember, the last moment I would see him and be with him before he embarked on the next chapter of his life. Returning to the empty apartment in Netanya, where we had resided together, it all seemed too quiet, so I made plans to locate Samy, hoping that perhaps he might be ready to date me openly. I drove up north to the kibbutz where I had met Samy to try to glean some news about him. I tracked him down running a bar in a town near the kibbutz. I was nervous about how he would react to seeing me. I arrived late Saturday night while there was a party going on in the bar. He looked very surprised to see me and suggested we go outside where it was quieter. "Hey, Samy, I know things didn't go so well when we met before the army, but I wanted to know how you've been doing," I told him. He kept his gaze neutral, and I couldn't read him. I stammered. "It's nice to see you again," I smiled sheepishly, unsure of what was going on in his head as his gaze drifted. Then all of a sudden, he pulled me into a tight embrace and kissed me. "I'm happy to see you again. Thanks for coming to find me," he said, loosening his grip. After that, I started driving up to spend weekends with Samy, and he'd visit me too. We cultivated a lot of affection for each other, and things were going well until one day, prior to going to see a movie together, Samy made a remark that changed everything. Out of nowhere, he said, "You know, sometimes I wonder if you're really committed to this relationship or just using it as a distraction from your studies." The comment hit me like a punch in the gut, an accusation that felt unfair and stung deeply. I couldn't shake it, and I regressed to old habits, sulking in silence like I had when I was younger, bottling up my feelings instead of expressing them. I crossed my arms and stopped talking to him altogether. "What's wrong? What did I say?" he asked, pushing for an answer. He had no idea that I was struggling internally, trying to manage my emotions, the only way I knew how, by shutting down. By the time we left the movie theater, Samy had made up his mind. "If you're not going to talk to me, then I want to break up," he said matter-of-factly. "What?" I was shocked. "Wait, I didn't mean for this to happen," I said with a tone of urgency. But Samy was firm. He took me back to my car, which was parked at his house, and told me to go home. He refused to listen and wouldn't take my calls. And just like that, it seemed to be the end of us. In an attempt to distract myself, I threw myself into dating other guys. "I'm going to make the best of it and go on some dates," I declared to myself, determined to move on. First, there was the cute ticket guy from the rink who I knew had a crush on me. Then I arranged to meet one of the elusive members of our social circle, who always seemed to disappear when we read in the newspapers about terrorist attacks on Israelis. Another escapade took me to Eilat, where I met a man with a sailboat. I met the owner of a horse ranch nearby, who became a trusted companion and helped to fill the empty moments during the teacher strikes. My third year at university seemed fraught with upheaval. Teacher strikes, rink controversies, abrupt goodbyes, and hurt feelings from broken friendships. All of it signaled the end of this period in my life, pushing me to move on. While dating injected a measure of excitement and fun into my life, I was looking for something else, something more profound. In a handwritten letter, I apologized to Samy and informed him I was soon planning on leaving Israel. Upon receiving it, he called to apologize for being so abrupt, and for a few weeks we rekindled our relationship. But it was short-lived, and soon it was time for me to leave. Samy agreed to come into town to accompany me to the airport. He picked me up early so we could make a stop on the way. Samy took me to a cemetery where his former platoon members, along with their friends and families, were gathered for a funeral. These were the comrades with whom Samy had endured the horrors of the war in Lebanon. As the somber events of the day unfolded, I learned the tragic tale behind the solemn gathering. One of their own had succumbed to the weight of survivor's guilt, believing he should have sacrificed himself for his commander. It was a tale that shattered everyone's hearts into pieces, including mine. On the day I bid farewell to Israel, after 8 emotionally charged years, I stood among the people and observed each of them as they stood there, delivering a heartfelt speech. Tears streamed down everyone's faces freely, including mine, and I found myself swept up in the deep sorrow of the moment. The palpable love among those present manifested itself through tender embraces and their mutual sharing of grief. After the funeral, we made our way to the airport, and with the weight of the day pressing heavily on my heart, I prepared for my final embrace with Samy. Despite the somberness, our renewed connection had been marked by moments of joy and fiery passion. "I'm going to miss you, Samy," I whispered, holding him tight. "Nah, you'll be fine. You'll have so many adventures you won't think about me for at least 2 years," he replied with a teasing grin. I stood there looking at him, and through the sadness, a sense of accomplishment washed over me. I had earned the respect and affection of the people around me, of Samy, his friends, and this country that I'd grown to call home. Yet despite this, I found myself saying goodbye. I looked at Samy for the last time, and a longing tugged at my heart, but it was accompanied by a familiar restlessness that stirred within me. We bid farewell, and I walked toward the plane, once again going into that interim space where I could reflect on what was and prepare myself for what would be.